Hey Canada, are you ready to hear how our Prime Minister stood up to American pressure? The U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hawkstra, tried to shame Canadians, saying, "We aren't passionate enough about America." But when Prime Minister Mark Carney was asked about those remarks, he didn't hold back. He hit back hard, exposing not Canadian weakness, but American desperation. Want to know what makes this response a game changer? Carney's response wasn't a polite brush-off. It was a warning, a line in the sand. He made it clear that Canada will not be lectured by Washington, will not bow to American hypocrisy, and will only negotiate deals that put Canadians first. This wasn't just a reply to Hawkstra. It was a message to Trump himself. The days of bullying Canada are over. Twice this week, the U.S. Ambassador to Canada has been telling Canadians about his great disappointment. Pete Hawkstra has said twice that the United States had hoped for a bigger deal with Canada than just the USMCA. He said they had hoped for a deal that encompassed critical minerals, steel, energy, nuclear, but it wasn't possible. So he said this to two audiences this week. What's your side of the story? Stay with Canada alert to find out why this matters for every Canadian. That bigger deal, that's in the interest, not just of the United States, but in the interest of the Canadian people, is not on the table, but it's still possible. What is the fact is that Canada and Mexico have the best actual trading relationship, trading agreements with the United States. First point. Second point is that a process is just beginning with reviews in each of our countries, consultations in each of our countries of how that relationship can be improved. And while those consultations are going on, of course, we're having bilateral discussions with the United States. So, you may see improvements along the way. We have the ambition. But you know, a deal is a deal, and a deal has to go for both sides, and Canada will agree to a deal that's in the best interest of Canadians. Should not surprise anyone, including the U.S. Ambassador, who's doing a very good job, I would add. Thank you for America. Let's rewind for context. Hawkstra had complained publicly that Canadians lack passion for the U.S.-Canada relationship. He admitted the business community still cares, but ordinary Canadians? Not so much. He called it disappointing. The thing that was probably the most unexpected, and we're going to get right into the meat of the stuff that we want to talk about today. Okay, I'm disappointed that I came to a Canada that is very, very difficult to find Canadians who are passionate about the American-Canadian relationship. Okay, you ran a campaign where, it was anti-American. Elbows up. Me too. It was an anti-American campaign. That has continued. That's disappointing. I talk to a lot of business people. They are passionate about the relationship because they recognize rebuilding ecosystems and rebuilding the kind of economic relationships that we have. As some people talk about, we'll go other places. It's kind of like, that's hard. Plus, this one works pretty well. We've created a lot of prosperity and wealth, high-quality, high-paying jobs, by working together on both sides of the border. Like I said, I'm passionate for it. The business community is passionate for it, but they're not very public about it. As we broke down yesterday on Canada Alert, this isn't some mystery. Canadians aren't cold because of neglect. They're cold because Washington burned the relationship. Trump waged a trade war against Canada, called our Prime Minister a governor, and treated Canada's sovereignty as expendable. Trust was broken. Respect was destroyed. So, when Hawkstra whined about disappointment, it was nothing more than projection. America blaming Canada for the fallout of its own actions. Now comes Carney's answer. Asked about Hawkstra's words, he didn't dodge. He made three things clear. The kind of bigger deal Hawkstra hinted at isn't even on the table and won't be unless it serves Canadian interests. Canada already has a practical, functioning trade framework. We're not chasing grand bargains for show. Canada will only sign on to agreements that protect Canadian workers, sovereignty, and industries. This wasn't bluster, it was strategy. Carney didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't insult. He projected calm strength. That's what unnerves Washington the most because Trump and his envoys thrive on chaos, bullying, and emotional reactions. Carney gave them none of that. Instead, he gave a dose of reality. Canada will engage only where there's benefit. If not, Canada has other options. with Mexico, with Europe, with Asia. The United States is not Canada's only path forward. For Canadians watching, this was a powerful reassurance. At home, families and businesses remember the pain of Trump's tariffs. They don't want to see Ottawa bowing to the same tactics again. Carney's words signal clearly those days are over. Carney's line that a bigger deal isn't on the table right now was carefully chosen. It's not rejection, it's leverage. He left the door open, but only if terms are fair and reciprocal. That's how you negotiate from strength. You don't beg for talks. You make others come to you with a real offer. You make it clear that your default position, the existing deal, already works just fine. Canada isn't desperate. Canada is secure. And that's why Hawkstra's complaint now looks even weaker. While Carney speaks as a statesman, Hawkstra sounds like a frustrated envoy scolding a neighbor. Carney's stance wasn't only aimed at Washington, it was aimed at Canadians too. His message was simple. Your government won't be pushed around. Canada's interests come first. That reassurance matters because Canadians have seen the damage of one-sided agreements before. They've seen jobs lost, industries threatened, and sovereignty undermined. Carney is showing that he learned those lessons and that under his leadership, Canada won't make the same mistake twice. This is why Canadians still have confidence in him. They see a leader who doesn't flinch, even when the U.S. ambassador is trying to corner him publicly. For Washington, Carney's words are a warning. Don't mistake openness for weakness. Canada is willing to talk, but only as an equal partner. If Hawkstra and Trump thought they could shame Canada into warmer feelings, they miscalculated. What they revealed instead is America's frustration because the old playbook, divide, pressure, dominate, isn't working anymore. Canada is more independent, more diversified, and less reliant on Washington than at any time in modern history. Carney's strength isn't just rhetoric. It's backed by real strategy. Canada has deepened ties with Mexico. It's pursuing ambitious trade deals with Europe and Asia. And it's building domestic resilience in energy, agriculture, and critical minerals. This diversification means Canada has choices, and choices mean power. When you can say no without fear, you negotiate from strength. That's the reality Hawkstra and Trump are facing. Here's the irony. Hawkstra tried to portray Canadians as cold and ungrateful. But after Carney's response, it's Washington that looks petty. Canada looks composed. America looks frustrated. This is the optics war in a nutshell. When you treat an ally as expendable, don't be surprised when that ally stops showing passion. When you attack sovereignty, don't be shocked when sovereignty is defended. Mark Carney turned a jab from Hawkstra into a showcase of Canadian strength. His stance makes clear Canada will only deal on fair terms, and Canada will not bow to American hypocrisy. So, if the U.S. ambassador thought his remarks would pressure Canada, he miscalculated. What he revealed instead was desperation. America's, not Canada's. This isn't disappointment. This is defeat. And under Carney, Canada is making sure the whole world sees it. Subscribe to Canada Alert to stay with us as we track every twist in this story, because this fight isn't just about trade or diplomacy. It's about sovereignty, respect, and Canada's place on the world stage.